In the shadowy stillness of Berlin's Tempelhof Airport, time stands still, a paused moment encapsulating the grief and echoes of a past steeped in tragedy, where the living and the dead weave a haunting tapestry of remembrance and regret. This sprawling edifice, once a beacon of aviation progress, has transformed into a haunting repository of history, holding imprints of anguish buried beneath layers of concrete and memory. Each gust of wind that whispers through its empty halls carries with it the disembodied voices of those who worked, fought, and suffered within its walls. Welcome to Ghost Stories of the Battles, where history intertwines with the spectral in narratives that remind us of what remains hidden beneath the surface. Here, the past reaches forward, tugging at our conscience, reminding us that every brick houses stories that have yet to be told, and every shadow may dance with the memories of those consigned to the tragedies of war. Tempelhof stands not merely as an airport, but as a monument to a tumultuous history, a canvas where the strokes of human suffering blend with the aspirations of flight, leaving an indelible mark on its surroundings. Tempelhof Airport, completed in the Roaring Twenties, was more than just a gateway to the skies. It became a strategic stronghold during World War II and a symbol of hope during the Berlin airlift. Its grandeur, however, is eclipsed by the somber tales that linger within its walls. Forced laborers toiled relentlessly in its construction during a time when humanity's darkness eclipsed its light. Their sweat and tears seeped into the very fabric of Tempelhof, creating ghostly narratives that echo in every corridor. The ghosts of despair haunt these spaces, poignantly echoed by the architecture that still whispers tales of hopelessness and defiance long after the last shot has been fired. As we embark on this journey through echoes of the past, we'll first enter the underground labyrinth, where the flickering specters of time and memory await. Here, an urban explorer named Alex, spurred by the legends surrounding the forgotten corners of Tempelhof, combats both excitement and trepidation as he prepares to unveil the layers of history that are often overlooked. Descending into the depths of this former aviation hub, he anticipates encountering remnants of a storied past, unaware that he is about to face the phantoms of those who have come to represent the unspeakable suffering tethered to this site. As Alex steps into the darkened tunnels where echoes resonate, he will find himself drawn into a world that blurs the line between the living and the dead. The harsh reality of history awaits him, cloaked in shadows and uncertainty, inviting him to confront the truths that lie within and beyond. With every step deeper into the abyss of human anguish, the boundaries of time will dissolve, revealing a haunting reality woven into the very essence of Tempelhof. Join us now as we delve into the first story, the Wraith of the Tunnel, and prepare to uncover the unsettling truths that await in the recesses of history. The air was thick with anticipation as Alex stood at the entrance of Tempelhof Airport, his heart racing with a mix of excitement and trepidation. It was a sprawling, hulking structure, its grandeur marred by time yet still resonating with the whispers of history. He had heard the legend stories spun from the chilling fabric of despair, woven by the souls who had once toiled in the airport's hidden depths. The tunnels beneath the sprawling complex were said to be haunted by the echoes of forced laborers who had met their tragic fates, their narratives still trapped within the stone. For Alex, a seasoned urban explorer, the thrill of uncovering the unknown often outweighed the fear that clawed at his insides. But as he descended into the damp, dark passageways, a sense of foreboding enveloped him like a shroud. The atmosphere grew oppressively cold, and he could almost hear the ghostly remnants of air raid sirens, an echo of the tumultuous past that had transpired above ground. Anxiety twisted in his gut, tightening its grip as he took his first steps into the echoing darkness. He switched on his flashlight, its beam slicing through the murky gloom, revealing the shadows that danced along the walls. Each step deeper into the bowels of Tempelhof was a step into a world that had been unkind, a realm neglected by those who preferred to forget. All around him, the dark seemed to shift and breathe, alive with the weight of lost stories. Little did he know, the absences he sensed were not just figments of his imagination. They were waiting for him, lurking beyond the veil of time, ready to reveal their tales. As Alex pressed on, the oppressive atmosphere seemed to thicken, wrapping around him like a heavy blanket. The walls of the tunnel were rough, honeycombed with age and neglect, marked by graffiti remnants left by previous explorers and ghost hunters alike. Each piece of art spoke in a language of the forgotten, a silent testament to those who had once walked this earth, a loneliness that transcended time. There was a strange juxtaposition in his journey. The thrill of exploration clashed with an abiding sorrow. Could the warm glow of human curiosity coexist with the cold shadows of despair? Suddenly, a sound cut through the silence, a low hum that resonated through the air. Alex froze, straining to identify the source. The noise was alien yet familiar, reminiscent of air raid sirens trailing off in the distance. It sent a shiver down his spine, evoking images of chaos and carnage from a past he could barely fathom. He could almost see the flickering shadows of those who once labored here, their faces twisted in pain as they scurried to escape the horrors above ground. The sensation of being watched prickled at the back of his neck, an overwhelming urge to turn and flee, battling with his need for discovery. Gathering his courage, Alex reminded himself that he had come here for a reason. He was a seeker of truth, no matter how haunting. As he descended further into the cacophony of memory, a chill brushed past him like a ghostly whisper. The hairs on his arms stood on end, and yet he felt an irresistible pull, as if something awaited him just beyond the next corner. Deeper into the tunnels, a flicker caught his eye. He was drawn to a dim light that shimmered off the slick walls ahead. As he approached, an ethereal figure materialized before him, translucent and flickering like an old film reel. It resembled a worker, clad in ragged clothing, their face marked with a haunting sorrow that transcended time. Alex's breath caught in his throat, a mix of terror and fascination flooding his senses. Are you real?" he stammered as the apparition turned its gaze toward him, eyes filled with a depth of anguish that seemed to literally pierce through him. The figure did not respond in words, but its presence was a pronouncement, a sad acknowledgement of the suffering that had occurred here. Alex felt the gravity of the moment, understanding instinctively that he was no longer just an observer. He was intertwined within a story that demanded to be told. Driven by a surge of impulsive courage, he followed the phantom as it moved gracefully through the dimly lit passage, its form weaving effortlessly through the ruins. They traversed narrow corridors lined with darkened alcoves, each turn leading Alex deeper into the labyrinth of despair. With each fleeting glance, he could almost hear the muffled cries of laborers who had once hustled through these underground channels. Their spirits were now but a whisper of forgotten history. Suddenly, the ghost paused in front of an abandoned chamber, a small room that sent a shudder through Alex. The beams of his flashlight illuminated the floor, revealing bloodstains that marred the otherwise rough limestonia, stark reminder of lives cut agonizingly short. Crude tools lay scattered around, remnants of hard labor that had contributed to construction, but whose story had been erased from the annals of history. Overwhelmed, Alex sank to his knees as the reality of what lay before him hit him like a punch to the gut. Grief washed over him in waves, and he felt a profound guilt for seeking adventure in a place where so many had suffered. These were not mere stories. They were lives, each filled with dreams and hopes extinguished violently by a ruthless regime. As he looked up, the ghost still lingered, its sad gaze fixed on him, as if urging him to understand the enormity of what had transpired within these walls. The weight of its history bore down upon him, and he realized that he was no longer just an urban explorer. He was now a bearer of sorrow, tasked with remembering and honoring those who had been lost. The air shifted suddenly, and Alex's breath came in shallow gasps as a ferocious chill swept through the chamber. In that moment, it felt as though the specter was pleading with him to share its story-toe voice the unacknowledged pain that lingered long after the machines of war had fallen silent. Alex, now trembling with understanding, stood to face the apparition head-on, resolve melding with regret. "Your voices will not be forgotten," he whispered, feeling the heaviness of his promise. A sudden surge of emotion flooded through him, pushing aside the thrill-seeker mentality that had initially drawn him here. No longer was he merely seeking an adrenaline rush. He felt a relentless call to honor the past. As the figure nodded solemnly, the temperature dropped and the world began to blur. Shadows danced on the fringes of his vision, and Alex felt the hollow reverberation of distant machinery and echoes of the past haunt his senses. The apparition glided backward, disappearing into the darkness as whisperous voices of the forgotten filled the air with sorrowful murmurs. The sudden silence was crushing. Alex stumbled backward, grappling with the weight of his experiences. The alleyway began to shift, losing its form as the past and present collapsed into one another, blending into a haunting mosaic spun from tragedy and inspiration. As the final murmur of the voices faded, he realized how dramatically he had shifted. The thrill of urban exploration paled in comparison to the surge of responsibility propelling him forward. With a newfound purpose burning in his heart, Alex made his way back through the labyrinth. He retraced his steps, the dim light of his flashlight revealing details he'd missed before as inscriptions on the walls, the faded names of those who had struggled against the tide of war, and the haunting silence that screamed for recognition. In his mind, he resolved to return above ground and bear witness to the history he had come to cherish. Emerging from the gloomy tunnels, Alex gasped as the warm sunlight bathed him, momentarily blinding him to the reality outside. It felt foreign life around him bustling, as if completely unaware of the silent echoes buried deep below. Heart pounding, he leaned against the cold metal railing of the stairway leading up to the airport. He realized the weight of the stories that had been entrusted to him. The thrill-seeking explorer was gone, replaced by a custodian of memories. Each ghostly whisper he had encountered deserved a voice, a place in history to prevent their pain from being forgotten in the annals of time. The urgency of remembrance coursed through him like electricity. As he walked away from Tempelhof, he felt an ever-present sense of responsibility to share the truth of the laborers' struggle, to ensure their stories breathed life beyond the shadows. Alex understood that these echoes of the past were part of the larger human experience, a tapestry woven from joy and grief, triumph and loss, where every thread needed recognition. In the wake of his harrowing journey, he cast one last glance toward the airport, a monument to the past, yet alive with the spirit of countless souls. He vowed to return, not merely as an explorer, but as a storyteller dedicated to these ghosts who echoed in the silence. Shaken and introspective, Alex's experience in the tunnels reverberated within him like an insistent drumbeat as he left the airport. Every step echoed with the weight of the lives lost, reminding him that he was now a part of this continuous narrative interwoven with history. He felt the deep responsibility resting on his shoulders, the duty to remember, to honor, to proclaim. Meanwhile, in 1945, history unfolded on another plane marked by both struggle and decay as we delve into the perspective of Klaus, a historian determined to document the tumultuous days following the war, caught in the midst of echoes himself. In the aftermath of World War II, amidst the rubble and despair of a divided Berlin, Klaus Fischer found himself drawn to Tempelhof Airport, a shell of its former grandeur. The airport, with its sprawling runways and haunting architecture, held within its walls the stories of countless lives irrevocably altered by war. As a historian, Klaus's mission was clear: to document the unsung narratives of the past, a daunting task, given the heavy layers of silence that enshrouded the site. With a notebook tucked under his arm, Klaus crossed the threshold into the terminal, greeted by an unsettling stillness that wrapped around him like an old, tattered cloak. He had read about the forced laborers who had suffered and died on these premises, contributing to the very structures now crumbling around him. The shadows of their stories loomed large, casting a pall over the grandiosity of Tempelhof, a place once bustling with life and now echoing with memories of loss. As he took his first steps inside the cavernous departure hall, Klaus felt an inexplicable chill snake down his spine. It was as if the air itself pulsed with a history that was alive, haunting him with every footfall. He paused, surrounded by the remnants of a bygone era, attempting to attune his senses to the whispers of the past. The expanse of marble floors, boarded windows, and derelict stands of life were a juxtaposition of beauty and sorrow, and Klaus knew he was standing at the confluence of both history and haunting. Klaus's breath fogged in the chilly air as he walked further into the terminal, his footsteps echoing against the stone. He had heard tales of cold spots throughout the airport areas where the temperature would plummet inexplicably, believed to be where the energy of the past clung most steadfastly. Intrigued, he began to methodically navigate the vast hall. His first stop was the air raid shelters, an ominous reminder of the bombings that had decimated Berlin. Entering one, he was struck by the dank air and the way the walls seemingly pressed inward, as if holding onto the horrors witnessed within. Klaus took out his notebook, jotting down every detail, but before he could immerse himself fully in the history, an unusual chill enveloped him. He glanced around, heart racing, noting that the temperature was noticeably lower than it had been just moments before. As he began to feel the weight of despair within the confined walls, the air thickened, constricting around his chest, momentarily disrupting his thoughts. With a determined breath, Klaus steeled himself. This was the raw pulse of historion built on loss, yet yearning for recognition. He concentrated on the stories of those who were trapped here, their lives intersecting at this very point in time. Suddenly, a flicker in his peripheral vision caught his attention, a movement that didn't belong. He turned, and there, amidst the shadows, stood a figure, indistinct yet undeniably there. The contours of a man began to form, his features obscured by a veil of haziness. Klaus's heart thudded in his chest as he instinctively withdrew his notebook, intrigued yet terrified. The figure appeared to be a blend of both soldier and laborer, a spiritual embodiment of the war's complexity, a haunting reminder of humanity's dualities during conflict. Compelled to understand, Klaus found himself approaching the apparition. The figure bore a mask of anguish and resignation, eyes filled with unfulfilled hopes. As he neared, the ghostly entity seemed to respond to Klaus's movements, mirroring his curiosity while emanating dread. A conversation unfolded, silent yet profound, transcending the boundaries of time. With every step he took, Klaus felt the oppressive weight of the countless souls who had tread upon this soil, struggling and perishing in the name of ambition and war. Their stories unwound in his mind as if a reel of film had begun to play men, and women bound by duty, many discarded and forgotten. Klaus stood steadfast, grappling with the context of what he witnessed. The air thickened around him, saturated with the voices of the past asking for acknowledgement. He empathized with their plight, forced laborers, young soldiers, mothers and fathers, all entangled in the vicious gears of history. Drawing from the well of his own emotions, Klaus leaned into the experience, channeling their suffering as he recorded their stories, hoping to capture the essence of what he felt. The ghostly figure remained by his side, its expression shifting. An echo of gratitude flickered in its gaze before sorrow claimed it. Klaus realized he was in the presence of a collective soul, a reflection of pain that needed to be transmuted into memory. As Klaus withdrew, he found himself led to the iconic stopped clock, hanging above the concursate's hands, frozen in time at the moment chaos reigned. The very symbol of halted lives and aspirations, the clock echoed a solemn reminder that what lay in the past still gripped that place tightly. Tell their stories, the ghost seemed to implore him, a gust of cold air swirling around him, a chilling breath of those who had been lost. Klaus was overcome by a profound realization. Time may have stood still for the clock, but it was the duty of the living to ensure that the echoes of history continued to resonate. Engulfed in that moment, Klaus understood he had become a vessel for the ghosts that lingered in the shadows of Tempelhof. He wrote down every detail, determined not to let their narrative slip back into silence. Even as the sun began to dip below the horizon, he felt the need to keep the stories alive, illuminating, if only for a moment, the forgotten histories that so desperately needed to be heard. In a sudden rush of energy, the ghost flickered, its form losing substance, leaving Klaus feeling a chill that coursed through his veins, entwining with his resolve. As it vanished, the air warmed again, but the space felt different, imbued perhaps with a sense of peace had not existed before. His heart heavy yet energized, Klaus emerged from the terminal, the weight of responsibility heavy on his shoulders. He had witnessed history both in pain and beauty, and he would honor the sacrifice through every word he penned. The echoes of Tempelhof would not be forgotten. Standing under the fading twilight, Klaus felt the world recalibrate in the aftermath of his experience. The airport, once a site of suffering and turmoil, now thrummed with the whispered stories of those who walked its corridors. As he made his way back to the steps leading outside, he took a deep breath, knowing that his task was just beginning. Determined to give voice to the forgotten, he wrote furiously in the glow of the fading daylight each scrawled letter, a tribute to those who had once suffered within these walls. He would shape their legacy from the shadows, refusing to allow their sacrifices to fade into obscurity. As night fell around him, Klaus resolved to keep the memories alive. He stood at the threshold of Tempelhof with a newfound sense of purpose, ready to bear witness to the past, ensuring its echoes would resonate for generations to come. While Klaus communes with the spirits of the past, deep within those same tunnels, a military commander grapples with the weight of his own legacy, bound in a web of regret and consequence. Join us as we step back in time, into the mind of Heinrich, caught between his choices and the echoes that haunt him. On April 26, 1945, as the chaos of the Berlin siege enveloped the city like a tightening noose, a German commander named Heinrich Schreiber stood alone in the cavernous Grand Hall of Tempelhof Airport. Shells detonated in the distance, their thunderous roars drowning out the sound of hope, leaving only a sense of impending doom that gripped him like ice. The weight of his decisions lay heavy on his shoulders, a leaden burden he could no longer ignore. Heinrich gazed out of the massive plate glass windows that framed the hall, eyes unfocused, lost among the fading echoes of surrender and despair. The grandeur of Tempelhof, a testament to human ambition, felt like a prison adorned with the accolades of a history that now seemed tainted. Built by the sweat and toil of forced laborers, the airport had once symbolized progress. But now, with the Soviet forces closing in from the outskirts of the city, it became a brutal reminder of the cost of pride and power. Amid the echoes of battle, Heinrich's mind replayed the moments that had led him to this precipice. Commands barked in urgency, the moving gears of war, the faces of those reduced to mere numbers in the machinery of conflict, each visage a ghost of a decision made hastily, without reflection on the human cost. The forced laborers who had been ordered to toil day and night glimmered in fragments of memory. Their suffering lingered like a fading whisper, tugging at his conscience. Inside this hallowed hall, the walls seemed to lean in closer, whispering their own stories, resonating with the souls that had been trapped within. He turned away from the windows, having seen too much of what lay beyond. Echoes of his soldiers' laughter rang hollow in his ears, replaced by the somber recognition that their mirth had flickered out like a single flame in a tempest. As Heinrich paced the polished floor, each footstep echoed, with the sound bouncing off the high ceilings and landing softly in his chest like a drumbeat of regret. The air felt thick, almost viscous, with the residue of history. He had never truly acknowledged the men and women who had helped forge this place, who had given everything for the meager wages he had been ordered to allocate. No longer could he paint them over with the brushstrokes of denial. Their lives, their sacrifices, towered larger in his mind than the grandeur of the building. Shadows flickered in the corners of his vision, fleeting glimpses of the laborers who had toiled without responsive specters imbued with the weight of unfulfilled dreams. Each shadow seemed to beckon him, leading him away from self-serving thoughts and toward the humanity he had so recklessly dismissed. The din of gunfire screamed outside, shattering the solemnity of his contemplation, and a shiver crawled up his spine. Suddenly, a single gunshot rang out sharp, precise. Heinrich's instincts kicked in, recalling the lives snuffed out by memories of war. Those sounds sent him spiraling into a pit of introspection. In that heartbeat of uncertainty, a vision unfurled before him, a glimpse into the lives of those he had commanded: a laborer's son, a mother torn from her children, a soldier searching for meaning amid the rubble of his own defiance. Each visage stared back at him with a mix of accusation and sorrow. The air shifted, growing colder, and he sensed a palpable presence inching closer. As his heart raced, the vision materialized an apparition of a haunting figure emerging from the darkened recesses of the hall. The outline shimmered, revealing itself to be a spectral representation of a forced laborer, worn and weary, eyes darkened with despair and despairing at the decisions of men like Heinrich. A part of him recoiled, wanting to flee, yet something deeper rooted him to the spot, compelling him to face the reckoning that awaited. The ghostly figure spoke not in words, but in an overwhelming sadness that filled the hall. Without sound, Heinrich understood. Each life lost bore witness to his authority, every scream muted under the guise of orders, each pair of eyes extinguished like candlelight in the wind. His resolve began to falter as guilt seeped into his bones, an insidious reminder of the weight he had borne as a commander. The spell of silence was shattered by another gunshot, and with each echo he felt as though he was plunged deeper into a river of time, reliving memories, the gleam of orders stamped with urgency, a young soldier dying at his feet, the desperate pleas of laborers falling on deaf ears. The cries of the past converged, becoming a relentless tidal wave of emotion that threatened to drown him. Suddenly, awakening in him was the pivotal realization that inaction to not see them, as people had condemned them to this eternal lament. The shadows transformed into a cascade of souls, their stories vying for recognition, pleading for remembrance beyond the history books. Each was woven into the fabric of the hall, the very air pregnant with their stories, waiting to be acknowledged. Caught in the storm of his own making, Heinrich stumbled back, his heart pounding as he faced the once grand hall that now morphed into a chamber of reckoning filled with swirling phantoms. Time bent sharply in on itself, entangling him in the tapestry of his choice. Every action, every decision now became painfully clear as they unfolded like toppling dominoes, each pushing the next toward an inevitable collapse. Just then, he caught sight of a soldier from his battalion, a fresh recruit, who had looked up to him with wide eyes full of admiration. The boy's expression twisted between desperate hope and unshakable fear. Heinrich could feel the weight of loss as the image shimmered, and the soldier's mouth formed a silent cry, an echo of all that had been lost in the chaos surrounding them. As shadows danced around him, Heinrich braced himself for the final realization that whirled through the hall like a storm. He felt trapped within the cycle of guilt, a loop, where existence and consequence were intertwined. How could he hope for redemption when his past actions were steeped in the blood of innocence? What price must he pay for the fleeting moments of glory he had chased at the expense of others? Yet among the chaos, a flicker of clarity emerged, a thought that perhaps acknowledging his wrongs could lead to reconciliation with the past. What if he opened his eyes, not just to his pain but to their suffering? To confront and honor every soul ensnared in these hallowed walls. As another gunshot resonated in the distance, a haunting echo of Berlin's final days, Heinrich stood at the precipice of a decision. Would he continue to allow these truths to swirl in the recesses of history, or would he step willingly into the sphere of accountability? It was in this moment of profound reckoning that he felt his spirit begin to lighten, a gentle release of the burdens he carried. Echoes filled the air. The sounds of distant cries morphed into something akin to a song. The dying light from the outside world cast translucent patterns on the ground, illuminating the path forward. With one last look around the hall, Heinrich addressed the cacophony of tortured souls surrounding him, a silent vow that their stories would not fall into shadows, swallowed whole by the darkness of neglect. As the final gunshot rang out, sharper and clearer than all those preceding it, Heinrich stepped forward and embraced the ethereal realm around him. His spirit, entangled with those he had wronged, merged with the whispering shadows of history, finally acknowledging that in facing their pain, he could begin to find peace in this place where memories linger, where redemption beckons, and where every echo cries out to be remembered. As Heinrich's spirit took flight from the confines of regret, a group of modern-day investigators breaching the layers of Tempelhof remained unaware of the stories that swirled just beyond the cusp of their understanding. Armed with their instruments and unease, they approached the old terminal, ready to confront the shadows lingering in the wake of history's echoes. In the dim light of a waning September evening, a group of seasoned paranormal investigators stood before the imposing facade of Tempelhof Airport, their hearts pounding with a mix of trepidation and anticipatory excitement. The anniversary of the Berlin siege loomed heavily upon them, a sentiment not lost amidst the echoes of history that surrounded this iconic structure. The team, known as the Ghost Seekers, had made a name for themselves by delving into the spectral mysteries cloaked in the shadows of America's and Europe's haunted sites. With an array of equipment, a DVR camera, EVP recorders, and EMF detectors, a collective energy radiated among the investigators as they prepared to embark on their journey into the depths of Tempelhof. Each of them had heard the legends surrounding the airport, tales of laborers, soldiers, and a commander whose shadow still lingered within its walls, permeated every corner with a melancholy spirit. As they crossed the threshold of the sprawling Grand Departure Hall, an unnatural chill enveloped them, whispering secrets of long-forgotten lives and untold tragedies. "Let's check our gear before we start," whispered Jenna, the team's sensitive, her breath creating small clouds in the frigid air. Her eyes roamed the hall, taking in the grandeur and the ghostly remnants of a bygone era. The hall, once filled with the buoyant sounds of travelers embarking on journeys, now stood silent, heavy with memories. As the group set up their equipment, a palpable sense of anticipation coursed through them. It wasn't merely a ghost hunt. They were stepping into a history laden with unresolved grief. As the investigators spread out, They began to capture the essence of Tempelhof's haunted atmosphere. The hum of the wind outside seemed to awaken the walls, reverberating with whispers of the past. Darkened corners stretched ominously, and shadows became playthings of the flickering light from their handheld lanterns. Each investigator felt the collective weight of loss, alive in the space around them. "Do you feel that?" Anthony, the team's technical lead, murmured, his fingers dancing over the EMF meter. It began to spike erratically, a sure sign that they were not alone. Jenna nodded, her instincts prickling in response. "There's something here," she breathed, glancing down the hall where the faded remnants of departure boards clung to the wall. With resolve, they gathered around the center of the hall, facing the iconic large clock that stopped at the moment chaos tore through Berlin. Jenna initiated the session, urging the spirits present to show themselves. "If there are any souls wishing to speak, we invite you to come forth." "We are here to listen." As her voice echoed, the atmosphere thickened. Suddenly, they were met with chilling sounds, faint whispers swelling into an incomprehensible buzz that sent shivers down their spines. Anthony's eyes widened as he adjusted his equipment. The whispers morphed into distant air raid sirens, a haunting reminder of the battles fought and lives lost within these very walls. Sarah, another investigator, readied her EVP recorder, capturing the ethereal quality of the sounds as they swirled around them. "Did you hear that?" she whispered, her face pale. Within moments, an apparition flickered at the corner of Anthony's vision. A shadow-like figure, partially transparent, drifted through the remnants of the grand space, its presence heavy with anguish that made the air turn abruptly colder. As if responding to the investigators' intent, the figure materialized more clearly before them. It bore the haunted visage of Heinrich, the commander they learned about through their research. His eyes, filled with a muted understanding of regret, locked onto the team with an intensity that sent a tremor through Jenna's heart. She felt an overwhelming emotional charge emanating from hema-convergence of pride and deep-seated regret. "It's him," she whispered, pointing. The team watched frozen as he opened his mouth, uttering fragmented phrases that echoed through the hall. "Pride, regret. It was never meant to." "Record that," Anthony shouted, hastily setting the device to capture the entity's disjointed words. The air became electric with emotion as the essence of Heinrich swirled around them, a ghost reflecting both a soldier's valor and a laborer's plight, both victims of the colossal machinery of war. "Tell us your story," Jenna pleaded, her voice now softer, more alluring. "We want to hear you." In a moment of collective stillness, Heinrich's image flickered and sharpened, morphing into flashes of past events, laborers toiling under brutal conditions, frames caught in the agony of harrowing decision-making amidst the war's chaos. The investigators visualized these depictions, their hearts aching with comprehension of the human sacrifices. Suddenly, a blast of wind swept through the hall. The investigators looked at one another, bewildered, as the sound of crashing waves filled their ears, perhaps of laborers drowning in labor, or soldiers falling amidst chaos. The clock ticked heavily toward an unseen doom, an undeniable reminder of the lives intertwined, the suffering brewed beneath the surface. "Let's try to bring him into focus," suggested Sarah, her voice trembling with a mixture of fear and empathy. The team joined hands, closing their eyes, creating a circle of energy, a collective warmth that clashed against the coldness surrounding them. "Please let us know you're here," Anthony continued. "Let your story be heard." As if responding to their combined will, Heinrich coalesced further, his features etched with a paralyzing sadness. He began to shift, almost pleading as he gestured toward the remnants of labor tools abandoned in the shadows. "I commanded a reality that I did not wish to face," he murmured, his voice barely a whisper now, a mere shadow of his former self. Empires rise on backs unwilling, and his image expanded, revealing the frail form of the laborers, their ghostly faces contorted in suffering. The investigators stood spellbound, witnessing as Heinrich's spirit navigated the fine line between his life as a commander and the oppression of those whose lives his orders forever altered. Tears glimmered in Jenna's eyes as she connected deeply with the anguish radiating from his being. It wasn't just the war, Heinrich continued, his voice weaving through the silence, stitching their two worlds together. It was the silence. We knew not the souls we crushed. I wanted respect, but it cost us everything. The energy shifted, thickening around them as dark clouds of emotion consumed the hall, pulling Jenna and her teammates into a trance-like state of understanding. They were compelled to confront their own life's history, littered with sacrifices, anonymity, and struggles lost in the confines of time. In that moment, the investigators felt a call to action, not merely to document their encounter, but to amplify the voices silenced by war. They joined together, offering a communal prayer of remembrance, articulating the struggle for peace, a desperate plea for forgiveness extending through the ages. As they begrudgingly opened their eyes, Heinrich's figure flickered again, this time morphing into an outline of a laborer, his face displaying the hardships endured and the initiative squashed under the boots of power. Remember us, he urged, fading slowly, but the intensity of his energy lingered in the space, the weight of unacknowledged history refusing to dissipate entirely. As the night wound down, the group had captured haunting clips and audio for future reflection, the echoes of Heinrich's words embedding themselves in each investigator's heart. The palpable sorrow that had enveloped them granted a newfound perspective to recount not just ghost stories for thrills, but to honor those who suffered. Stepping out of Tempelhof, they felt the breeze that whispered through the haunting hallways echo the spirits of the past. Each of them grasped the enormity of their responsibility to tell the tales, to amplify the voices long silenced as they ventured into the night, irrevocably changed. Remembering is not merely telling tales, Jenna said softly, her gaze lingering on the now quiet airport. It's a promise to the past, a thread connecting us to those who came before. Their echoes must not fade with time. As they departed, the shadows loomed behind them, guardians of the stories that had been shared, reminders that the past lives within the present, waiting to be remembered. The specters of Tempelhof were no longer confined to the sorrowful whispers echoing through the corridors. They now lived in the hearts and voices of those who honored them with recognition and remembrance. In the silence that followed, as the moonlight cast its glow across the tarmac, the airport stood a steadfast reminder of history's binding legacy, waiting for others to acknowledge the spectral shadows wrought by human choices. In weaving this intricate tapestry of narratives through the echoes of Tempelhof, we journeyed alongside urban explorers, historians, absent commanders, and dedicated investigators. Each character encountered shadows of their past, intertwining their stories with the haunting legacies of Tempelhof Airport, a site that once echoed the laughter of departing travelers, but became interlaced with the despair of those who suffered. Alex's descent into the underground tunnels revealed the price of ambition and exploitation, while Klaus uncovered a spectral link to unresolved histories echoing beyond time. Heinrich, trapped by his own decisions, confronted the weight of regret, becoming the embodiment of a silent struggle that stretched across generations. Finally, our team of paranormal investigators reminded us that these souls were not merely ghosts. They were reflections of humanity's collective memory, a living testament to the sacrifices made in the name of pride and progress. Through their journeys, we discover that the past is a vital component of understanding our present. The wounds left unresolved never truly fade. They linger, waiting for acknowledgement and reconciliation. As we look back on the chilling tales intertwined with Tempelhof's legacy, we are confronted with the reality of how history shapes us, urging us to confront and learn from the echoes that reverberate silently through time. Cultural significance manifests itself through the obligation to remember those who have suffered a commitment, not just to the heroes, but also to those silenced by their fates. We must endeavor to know their stories and share them, bridging the gulf between the living and the dead, ensuring that no voice is lost amidst the chaos of time. As we conclude this haunting exploration, let us carry forward the lessons learned within those walls. History is a somber ally, but also a guide. The spectral shadows of Tempelhof remind us of our shared humanity, urging us to honor legacies of love, loss, and remembrance. If you were moved by these stories of sorrow and remembrance, please like, share, and subscribe to Ghost Stories of the Battles. Join us next time as we delve deeper into the chilling echoes of history, ensuring that the voices of the past never fade away. Your journey into the spectral realm of truth has just begun. May it resonate within you eternally. As the lights dim on the chilling narratives reverberating through Tempelhof, we are left to ponder the shared experiences of those who trudged through its hallowed halls and hidden tunnel stories intertwined, tragedies linked in ways that transcend time. Each character, bound by the weight of their choices and circumstances, serves as a poignant reminder of the unresolved trauma that still ebbs and flows beneath the surface of our modern existence. Alex, the urban explorer, ventured into the dark arteries of the airport with excitement, only to emerge burdened by guilt and a renewed sense of responsibility towards the past. The once exhilarating thrill of exploring unexplored spaces turned into a confrontation with history, a reflective journey that dismantled his casual indulgence into a sobering recognition of human suffering. He became a vessel of remembrance, carrying the heavy echoes of lost lives that blew through the tunnels like gusts of cold wind. Klaus, the historian, found himself engulfed in time's relentless embrace, documenting not just events, but the very essence of despair and resilience that permeated Tempelhof's atmosphere. His cold spots were not merely drops in temperature, they were portals to the memories of those whose lives were cut short. In acknowledging the ghosts that hovered around him, Klaus understood the vital importance of giving voice to Historioth, ensuring that the spirits, bound by pain, would not be forgotten in the annals of time. Through his work, he grasped the ethical obligation of historians to bear witness, to create narratives that honor those who suffered and who continue to speak through the echoes of their struggles. Meanwhile, Heinrich, a figure lost in the throes of war, became the embodiment of a duality: the oppressor and the oppressed, forever tangled in a web of accountability and regret. As he navigated the chaos of his choices, he realized that his existence was eternally enmeshed in the stories of the laborers. In his spectral form, he transformed into a lingering reminder that every decision carries weight, and the past remains inescapable. Heinrich's journey illuminates a profound truth: that reconciliation with history is not merely an option but a necessity for progress. Lastly, the paranormal investigators, shuddered in skepticism yet drawn to the emotional pull of the site, found themselves at the junction between the living and the dead. They were not just seeking evidence of ghosts, but connecting with the very essence of humanity that lingered in Tempelhof. Their endeavor ignited a dialogue on the importance of memory and the cultural significance of recognizing our historical atrocities as a means toward healing. As we conclude these intertwined tales, the specters of Tempelhof stand as haunting representatives of collective memories, those lingerings of anguish and sacrifice that remind us that our histories do not dissipate, but rather echo through time. The ghost stories, both chilling and poignant, serve not just as entertainment, but as vital narratives urging us to confront the shadows of our past. Thus, we invite you to reflect on your own histories, the layers of sacrifice and survival that shape your stories. History is not merely a chronicle of events. It is a living entity, echoing through our lives, ever present, begging for acknowledgement. So, as we part ways, we encourage you to carry this awareness with you and recognize the connections we all share with the past. If you are moved by these stories of sorrow and remembrance, please like, share, and subscribe to Ghost Stories of the Battles. Join us next time as we delve deeper into the chilling echoes of history, ensuring that the voices of the past never fade away. Together, let us keep alive the tales that haunt the corridors of memory, preserving the lesson that history speaks if only we are willing to listen.